Alrighty, guys, welcome back to Becoming a Bowhunter. I'm excited sitting here with PJ Rielly. PJ, welcome, mate.
How you doing? Good to see you, Matty, as always.
Yeah, likewise. So we're just talking. It was 2 years ago that we last talked, and I have to be careful because last time we talked, I bought a bow.
Yes.
No, I'm actually very, very, very happy with my bow. However, I don't know, that might change with our conversation. I'm not sure. I guess realistically, last time we talked all about the 2020 bows, a lot of the flagship bows that were coming out. But yeah, what's happened for you in the last 2 years, mate? It's been a wild ride, really.
It has been, obviously the world and the way we do things is affected. From the archery side, what we're seeing is just unprecedented growth. It's bow hunting has just been exploding. Target archery, everything, people are looking for something new to do, and it seems archery is one of those things, archery and bow hunting. And it's just, business has been crazy. I know there are some negative effects from what's been going on, but I can tell you in the archery world, man, if you can make it and get it out, you can sell it. It's just insane.
At one point here, actually, I'm just going to turn my video off, but I'll keep talking. But yeah, at one point here, our shops were bare. So everything had sold out. It was crazy. Like, literally.
I believe it.
Everything was gone, and we just couldn't ship stuff over here fast enough. And you'd go into I just went in to have a look a few times, and I reckon a span of about 6 months, everything was bare, like non-stop. Just people were just boarded up because they were looking for things to do. Exactly what you're saying, and I think it's absolutely great. It's an awesome little thing that you can, like, here. I don't know about you guys, but we can shoot in our backyard and stuff without there being problems, as long as you're doing it all safely, right?
Yes.
And so I think it was really kind of a great thing for a home body to take up.
For sure. Yeah, right. The state where I live, Pennsylvania, and where Lancaster Archery is located, the last 2 years, we've seen record numbers of hunters overall and bow hunters along with that. So it seemed like last year in particular, when there was the lockdown, it seemed like a bunch of people took up bow hunting, or maybe they had hunted before, whatever. There were a bunch of license sales that we hadn't seen before. That were new last year, and then it kept going this year.
Do you have a statistic on that? Do you know what sort of numbers it increased by?
It was, Pennsylvania had been going down for years, and we went back up. I believe we picked up almost 200,000 hunters.
Wow.
Again, we had been dropping for years, but that was the first increase that we had seen. And it was about 200,000 hunters overall, of which, about 40% are always bow hunters. So it was a pretty nice jump in bow hunters as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, mate, we've got you in to talk all about the 2022 bows this year. And I think one of the coolest things about your job is that you get to kind of go and test them out and make some videos and stuff. So, of course, if anyone wants to see the full-length videos, they can head across to your YouTube channel, which is just Lancaster Archery, and see all of that. But I kind of thought, I've got a little list here that I thought we'd just start in line and shoot our way through. I'm going to try to make a video out of this as well. So I'm going to jump to the websites and have a look at them as we talk about them as well. So I thought if we started with the Bowtech.
Gotcha. Yeah, SR350. That was, there wasn't much new in that bow, in that it was very similar to the last 2 years. The Bowtech bows, they've been getting smoother and smoother. They're just super comfortable shooting bows. There was a lot of talk on the internet about the speed rating. It's the SR350. And a lot of people were talking about, it doesn't actually shoot 350. There were some folks who did some speed tests. Me personally, I don't put much into the speed ratings because they're shooting arrows that I would never shoot under any circumstances.
Super light.
Especially not bow hunting. Yeah, they're super light arrows. And, for bow hunting, for sure never going to shoot those arrows. So that doesn't bother me. But it came in, right in the middle of the pack. I think the arrow that I was shooting, you know, high 400 grains. I think it was like 470 something. And we got 285 on the performance setting and 275 on the comfort setting. That SR350 has the module you can flip from one side to the other. That's one of the unique
like where is that? Is that on the cam?
It's on the cam. Yeah, it's what you use to adjust the draw length.
Mm-hmm.
So on the Bowtech, it has two sides to it, and it gives you basically two bows in one. One is called the performance setting, and that one's it makes the cam pretty aggressive, and that's where you get your speed from.
Yep.
And then the other side is called comfort, and it's just what you would imagine. It's super comfortable to hold back. But even on the performance setting, that SR350, it's not one of those that really, wants to jerk your shoulder forward. It's got a decent valley, but it definitely through the draw cycle, you got effort at the front end, and then just before the cam rolls over, you can feel there's another extra effort required to get it to go over.
So what was the difference in speed again? What did you say the difference?
It was 10 feet per second. It was 285 to 275. The way I had it set up, it was 70 pounds. I think 29 inches.
And to adjust that, do you need to? Did you say you have to flip the whole cam?
No, it's just the module for draw length. It's just a little piece. You just flip that over.
How good.
Which is great. I mean, and Bowtech, of course, has what they call their deadlock system, which for tuning, there's just a screw on one end of the axle, basically, and you turn that and you can drive that cam left or right. You don't need a bow press. You can do it while you're standing there on the line. It's one of the more ingenious systems for being able to paper tune that bow. Super simple. So there's lots of technology in those Bowtech bows, and this one was the same. It just wasn't a whole lot. I forget what last year's bow was called, but when I got the SR350, I immediately went to our pro shop. I wanted to look because I was like, man, I can't tell the difference. So it did look very much the same. The cam was shaped a little different is what the difference was.
Yeah, okay.
Great bow, though, for sure.
So I think they actually brought out that locking system in 2020. It was when we first talked. That was like
it's been a couple years. Yeah, I think on their hunting bows, they had it on Target previous. That's the first place they had it, and then it came in on the hunting line. But yeah, that's a great system.
Okay, and so I think that's kind of covering the bow. I mean, really, it comes in all its different modules. Your different weights, 50, 60, 70 pounds.
Yep.
Draw length, 25 to 30 inch. What do we have? It's a 33 axle to axle.
Right.
Brace height 6 inch. So yeah, pretty much wraps it up. So let's go on to the Matthews. I know you're a bit of a Matthews fan, so.
Yep. So Matthews. So they have the V3X.
Yeah.
And last year they had the V3, which was 27 and 31 inches. So for the V3X, they're coming out in 29-inch axle to axle and 33-inch axle to axle, which 33-inch, that's my sweet spot. I like a big bow. And what's unique about these bows is they have this super long riser. I mean, it's incredible. When you look at this bow, it says it's 33 inches axle to axle, but when you're holding it, it feels much bigger because the riser is huge.
Yeah. Okay.
It's at the cam, or the limbs are almost past parallel. When you draw it, they definitely are past parallel. In other words, they come below the riser. So I took the 33 and put it up against my 36-inch target bow, and the risers are the same length.
Okay.
So the riser for this 33-inch hunting bow is the same as my 36-inch target bow.
Wow. Let's stop and talk about that for a second. Why do you like a longer riser? Like, what's the difference between a longer versus a shorter bow, and the riser? Like, they've obviously said for a while that a longer bow is better for accuracy. Is that correct?
Well, it depends. There's one of the things that Matthews is doing with their bows is the reason they're making that longer riser is so that you can go shorter. That 29-inch riser or that 29-inch bow is going to feel a lot bigger than it actually is. Me personally, I have a 29 and a half to 30-inch draw length. It varies depending on how I'm feeling. And so anything short where the axle to axle is shorter than my draw length, the string angle starts to get pretty sharp.
Okay, gotcha.
So I have to really lean in to get my nose to the string to see through the peep.
Yeah.
So I like a bigger bow. I think it's more comfortable to shoot. Now, where Western hunters for us in the U.S., they're probably going to like those longer bows as well because they hold better. They're shooting longer distance. Where I live, we all hunt from tree stands, and the average shot is 20 yards and in. So guys here tend to like those short bows because they can maneuver.
Maneuvering. Yes.
Yeah, they can in tree stands. And if you're shooting 20 yards, it doesn't really matter. Realistically, that short axle to axle is not going to affect you. That's just the way it is. It's at the longer distance where you may see some difference. And quite frankly, I shoot my hunting bow more at targets than I do at animals. So I prefer that.
Yeah. And so how heavy is this bow compared to, like, for instance, your Bowtech? It does weigh in a little bit heavier, but does it actually feel that heavy?
It doesn't, no, because I think the difference is just a couple ounces, isn't like the
it's
the
literally.
Matthews is like, the 33, it's like 5.8 to 5.4 or something like that.
Yeah, so on the
weight
4.4 on the Bowtech, and then 4.4 on the 29, but 4.67 on your 33 on the Matthews.
Yeah, that I'm not
next to nothing.
Yeah, I'm not good enough to notice that difference. It's next to nothing. It's not like an aluminum versus a carbon bow. It's minuscule weight difference. And that what I can say is that V3X33, it's substantially bigger than that Bowtech 33. If you held them side by side, that V3X is monstrous. It's a huge bow.
Yeah.
And again, I like that. I know what they're saying about the tree stands. I've never found where the bigger bow caused me problems in a tree stand. So I don't mind it, and I prefer shooting it.
Yeah, awesome.
But Matthews, of course, they have it down with this cam system they have now. It's super comfortable to draw. It's just really, my 70-pound bow does not feel like 70 pounds. And of course, they still have what they call their switch weight mod. So Matthews is the only one doing this, where most bows, if you have like 50 to 60 pounds, if you want to go to 60 to 70, you have to get new limbs. But Matthews has this system that they call switch weight, where you get one bow and you change the draw weight by the module, the draw length module. So you can take that bow from 50 to 60 to 60 to 70. I think they have a 65 to 75. And all you're doing is switching a module on the cam. So, which it's like a $30 part versus limbs, which are about $150. So it's real easy to have one bow, and you can have different mods, for target shooting, hunting, whatever. Yeah. That's a pretty ingenious system they got there. Yeah, and I should mention they're what they really came out with new this year is that what they call the bridge lock.
Yes.
So they have a spot where you can mount the sight in the center of the riser. It actually has a dovetail that slides into the center there, just a more secure sight. And it's what we're doing is making these bows skinny, taking all the stuff off the outside that you add and just slimming them down.
And so let's talk about that. If you've got your sight and everything in place already, say for instance, you've got your 3-pin slider, can you just take it off of your old bow and put it into your new bow?
So the answer to that is maybe.
Depending on the sight.
I was tasked earlier this year actually with checking the dovetail sights to see what worked.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was all over the place.
Okay.
Some, most of the dovetail sights, the dovetail actually fits.
Yep.
That's not 100% across the board. There were some where the dovetail was kind of skinny, and so it didn't fit. I think there was a CBE where we found that it was too small. But then the big issue is, do you have enough right adjustment, windage?
Mm-hmm.
And because you're moving the sight to the left, the physical sight, to get that same center shot, you're going to have to move your scope to the right. And what we're finding is many sites did not have enough right adjustment.
Yeah.
But I can't say this one did and this one didn't, because it was, if you had the 41 millimeter scope on it, it worked. But if you went to the 31, it didn't work, or vice versa. The big scope didn't work, the smaller one did. It was kind of all over the map as to what worked and what didn't. A lot of sites, like the Spot Hog Hoggets, they have a bracket on it that you can already flip over and you can get that adjustment. So some sites, not made for it. What's happening now is site companies are making these brackets. Some already had it. I know HHA already had such a bracket where you could shift everything to the right.
Okay.
But it's a nice mounting system. I mean, when you get that thing in there, it's locked in. That was kind of the cool thing.
Is that something that they've patented themselves? Like, is it something you think that all bows will start to come out with, or is this something that Matthews have said is theirs and theirs only?
I'm sure it's a Matthews patent. That someone would have to do it, because of course Hoyt has their Picatinny mount, which does the same thing but does it a different way. And I know Matthews has the patent on the dovetail rest mount, so I'm sure they have it on this sight mount as well.
So how long have they had this in the works then? Because to get a patent, it takes a fair bit of time, doesn't it?
I mean, this is their first year with it. I don't know how long they were working on it, but this is the first year where their bows have that bridge lock system in there. But they could have been working on that for a couple years. But it's a pretty good system. And, now, like I said, all the site companies are reacting and they're doing what they have to do so that their sites will work with it.
Yeah. It just looks like a nice bow too, to be honest. I do like the look of the 33-inch. It looks cool.
Well, yeah, and I should mention what that then allowed them to do is then they also came out with a new quiver this year. And the quiver, because you took the sight off the side and now the rest has been gone, that quiver now sits tighter to the bow as well. They call it the tight something. I forget what it's called. But it is it mounts closer to the riser of the bow.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So I mean, obviously you have to buy their branded one then, though, right? Like using a tight sight's not going to be as close to
the quiver.
Yeah, for the quiver. Sorry, using a one of the really close ones that we've had previously. Using one like that, is it considered as tight or what?
It does, like a tight spot quiver. That's another one that sits pretty close. It's very close to that. This one might be a little bit more, but not much. The point is that they had their quiver system of past years. That one stuck out pretty far.
Okay.
That's the Matthews quiver. And this one is way tighter than that.
And it says 56% closer to the riser. There you go.
Yeah. The Arrow Web, that was their previous system. Yeah, this one is it's really snugs in on that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, so moving on to the Hoyt bows for this year then.
Hoyt. Yep. So Hoyt, as they always do, have the aluminum and the carbon. They were calling their aluminum this year the Ventum Pro.
Yeah.
The carbons are the RX7.
Can we talk about them both? Because the Ventum, I actually gave
Sure.
away a Ventum 33 last year. I was pretty pumped for that. So yeah, let's talk about the Ventum Pro first.
So the Ventum Pro, it has a little bit different cam from the Ventum. Basically what they did was the Ventum Pro, I don't want to say it was heavy, but it was heavier than the Ventum Pro. Excuse me, the Ventum was heavier than the Ventum Pro. So with the Ventum Pro, they did a bunch of stuff to cut down on some of that weight. And they also did several things to make the bow more aesthetically better looking. The Picatinny system was a bolt-on system in the past, which was fine, but it looked like an add-on part. Yeah. And so for the Ventum Pro, that Picatinny is now machined into the riser. So it's a part of the riser. So it just looks a little nicer. And as we mentioned, they made that bow a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
Then the RX7, that's where they really made some adjustments. That was a pretty big adjustment for them because forever the Hoyt carbons have been a 3-tube system. It's been 3 round carbon tubes that are woven together to make the riser. Yeah. And then the end caps, where the riser connected to the limb pockets, those were always aluminum. So it wasn't a 100% carbon riser. It had aluminum caps. Yeah. So for the RX7, they went to 2 tubes, 2 carbon tubes, and it's carbon from limb pocket to limb pocket. There's no aluminum head on there. Yeah. So again, that allowed them to make it lighter. And then also with the 2-tube system, it actually made the riser stiffer. So you can, sorry.
It's all right. Work's still going to happen.
So that riser is super stiff. And it was noticeable. I thought, I hear that all the time. It's stiffer. I always think, yeah, right, whatever. But shooting it, I could tell. Okay. The hand shock, I would say carbon has a telltale hand shock, I've always thought. Yeah. And it still does, because it's a lighter material. You feel the thump compared to aluminum. But this is definitely less, and it's not the thump where the bow wants to jump out of your hand. And where if you have a loose hand grip, some of those past carbon bows, the bow could fly out of your hand. So this wasn't like that. I really liked the RX7. Okay. It was a super nice bow to shoot. Yeah. The changes they made were palpable, and it was a lot lighter. So I don't know if you remember, but the RX5, those carbon bows were actually heavier than the aluminum bows. With the short stop, Hoyt came out with their new short stop, the little stabilizer system. Yes. And the carbons were actually heavier than the aluminums, which is not the way it's supposed to work.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So this one, they cut a bunch of weight to get that weight down. And it's a super nice shooting bow.
And they've put a new grip on, right? They've changed the grip again?
They did. Yes. Thank you. That was another thing. They came out with a new grip. So I will say that I was never a big fan of the Hoyt grips. It they always made you want to kick the top of your hand in, lifting your heel. Okay. Which most other grips you would want to bring your heel into the grip. Yeah. And if you did that with a Hoyt, because that's the way you were used to it, you would push the bow up. You'd kick the bottom of the bow and it would shoot it up. So I never really liked the angle. Well, they took a significant amount out of the angle of that grip to kind of straighten it. And now for me, it's much more comfortable. Yeah. I'm sure people who are used to the Hoyt grips, they probably liked that. Yeah. I know I, for one, prefer the new grip to older grips.
And the cam system they're using now, I did watch a few videos, and people are saying that it's really smooth compared to maybe previous bows. Did you kind of find the same thing?
Yeah, that started last year. I said last year when they came out, or I'm saying it was last year, with the Ventum and the RX5, that was a new cam system for them. They went away from the cam and a half, and they went to a binary cam system. You don't see the yokes anymore.
Yeah.
And I always felt like the Hoyt cams were a bit aggressive. In other words, I'd come to full draw, and it felt like if I, crept even a little bit, it was really pulling my shoulder forward.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough of a valley for me personally. That's my style. Where these, when they went to that binary cam system last year, and then again this year, it's much nicer to draw and hold. It doesn't want to yank your shoulder forward. I think the shooting experience is much nicer now. And I think that's where Hoyt was getting beat. We have a saying here that the bows are sold at 5 yards. You go into the shop and guys get up and they just shoot it. There's no sight on it. Everything is by feel. It's a shame that's the way it's done, because that doesn't really tell you much.
No.
But that's reality. And I think Hoyt was getting beat there because that 5-yard shooting experience wasn't as nice as some of the other bows that were out there.
That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
They fixed that, I think, with the binary cam.
Yeah. And so they've got the 34-inch bow. Is that the only one on the market at the moment of the 2022 bows?
Is the Ventum Pro, is that a 34 or a 33?
Let's jump back. Where have I got?
They have a turbo, which is a carbon bow.
Ventum Pro.
And I thought that was the 34-inch. I can't remember now.
They've got a 30 and a 33 in the Ventum Pro.
Yeah. And then the RX7 is probably 30 and... Is that a 34? I didn't see the big one.
They've got the Ultra as well. Let's scroll down.
Ultra, that's the one I was thinking of. So the Ultra is actually still built on the RX5 system. It still has the 3 tubes.
Okay.
What I was told by Hoyt is they didn't come out with an Ultra. So I forget the name of it. They did it somehow. Is it called I don't think it's called the RX7 Ultra, is it?
Let's have a look. Carbon RX7 Ultra, yeah.
Oh, it is called the RX7. Well, I know that riser is not the 2-tube riser. It's from the RX5. They carried it over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, moving forward, we've got Prime. Need to bring up the website.
Big change year for Prime. I mean, that's probably the biggest. No more parallel cams.
Yeah.
They went to the single cam, not a single cam, but, binary cam system. Yeah. And the engineers told me straight up, because Prime forever was saying, oh, this parallel cam system, that's what we do to take out cam lean. This is our system. It's the best. And the engineers said, hey, engineering is about advancing. They're like, they understood that parallel cam system was heavy. It was complicated. I think the last series of Prime bows had 7 strings.
Jesus.
Each bow had 7 individual strings. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah.
So the engineers said, hey, we recognize that's complicated. It's heavy. From an engineering standpoint, that's not ideal. So he said they figured a way to do the same thing the parallel cams did with a single cam.
Okay.
And it's pretty ingenious. You have to kind of stand behind the bow to watch it. But when you draw that bow, all their strings come into alignment so that it actually still is pulling straight down. It is keeping that cam vertical, because you don't have, one cable here and one cable here, and then the string in the middle. Everything comes in and gets in line, hence the name. It's the Prime Inline series.
Yeah.
And so it's a pretty ingenious system, the way they did that, to maintain that vertical cam position. So that was their fix for it. And, the bow is lighter, quieter. That was the other thing. Those parallel cams, those bows tended to be loud.
Mm-hmm.
The Inline is much quieter. And it's just a super nice bow, shoots great. They're one of the only bows, I think they're the only one, where they put that throat of the grip in the physical center of the bow. So when you hold up a prime, it looks kind of different because there's the same amount of riser above the grip as there is below, where most have the grip is lower and it looks like there's more above it.
Yeah.
But that helps with the balance. The way they do it, that bow with nothing on it balances really nice.
I actually just saw on their website they're offering free strings as well. If you register your bow with them, they'll give you free strings every 2 years for the life of your bow.
They've been doing that for a while, for life.
I had no idea. That's insane.
That's also probably why they wanted to do a 7 strings. That was probably expensive.
Had to change the system.
Yeah. Now it's only 3 versus 7. So that's much more efficient.
It's funny. Prime it's one of those brands. I think I said this exact same thing the last time I talked to you about them. It's a brand that when people become a Prime user, they tend to just be all about Prime. Like they just absolutely love their bows once they start shooting them. And I don't think any other brand quite gets that. I don't think anyone quite attaches themselves to the brand. Maybe Matthews. You're seeing that a lot more recently with the Matthews, I'd say from the V3 onwards. But, yeah, I don't know. It just seems that people who start to shoot Prime, they really just become Prime lovers and Prime. They're loyal to Prime and Prime
Absolutely.
only. Would you agree with that across the board?
Definitely. Yep. The Prime people, they are all about Prime and they love them. We have a guy at one of our techs at the shop who's a Prime guy, and you can't tell him about any other bows. That's all he wants to shoot.
Do you what's his kind of reasoning around it? Does he say anything towards it compared to the other bows? Like he just prefers the way it shoots. That's kind of it.
It's one of those things and this is where the individuality comes in. All of us are probably like it to some extent. You pick up a bow and that's the bow that just feels right to you. Mm-hmm. And Prime's bows, historically have been so different from others that if that's the one you liked, there wasn't really anything else that felt much like it. Some of the others, there's kind of some similar feel, but if you liked the way the Prime felt, you weren't getting that anywhere else.
Yeah, that's interesting. So moving forward onto PSE.
Yeah. So PSE, they had 2 releases. They had the aluminum, which is the Evo XF, I think it is. Yep. I have not spent much time with that one. To me, it felt like some of the Evolves, but I think the one that everybody's talking about is the Levitate, the carbon Levitate. And for me personally, that changed my expectations of a carbon bow. Mm. I would say I was not a huge carbon bow fan.
Okay.
Because I felt like I always had to weigh them down to get them to do what I wanted them to do.
Yeah.
I'm not a pro, so naturally I don't hold the bow steady. So I had to weigh it down to get it to do that.
Yeah.
But when PSE sent us this bow, John Dudley, of course, had a ton to do with the development of this bow.
Yeah.
He called me and he said, how are you going to set it up? I told him, I'm going to put my V-bar on there or my side rod connection, put 15-inch, 10-inch. He's like, nah, don't do that. He told me, he said, set this thing up as light as possible. He said, I want you to have this thing shooting under 5 pounds.
Wow.
Which, first off, I was like, under 5 pounds? No way, that's impossible. So I did it. I found, I think I had a 8-inch shrewd stabilizer. I got a light sight. I forget what sight I put on there, but I put light accessories, and it ended up weighing 4.8 pounds total.
Yeah.
I shot that thing out to 50 yards, and it felt as nice as anything. I mean, it was just super comfortable. It balanced nice. It shot nice. They're using a proprietary material called dead frequency carbon. I don't know what that is. All I know is it minimized that hand shock.
Yeah.
The PSE carbons, I will say, are one that would jump out of my hand.
Okay.
Release that string, man, and if I didn't have a finger on the front of it or a wrist sling or something, I was going to drop it.
Yeah.
This one did not do that. It just sat in my hand. You know, again, it's carbon. You do feel the thump, but it's not the thump that goes all the way up to your elbow. It's just kind of, you know, the bow went off.
I wonder if that would change if you did put more weight onto it. I've found with carbon bows I've used in the past that the heavier they are with the accessories, the more of an oomph it gives you like that. So I wonder if that's why John's kind of told you to do it that way. But I think obviously having a name like John Dudley behind something, pushing it so much, and obviously the amount of influence that he has within the bow hunting community, and the amount of people that he then sets up their bows as well, and gets them onto the things that he's using. It wouldn't surprise me if this is probably the top selling bow of the year, right?
Well, he said that he hunts a lot in the early season. He hunts a lot of elk at high elevation. So I don't do a lot of that. But one thing I can say is I went 2 years ago to Montana in the mountains, and the bow I had was my whitetail bow. I had a 15-inch front rod, a 10-inch side rod. I did not like carrying that thing around. It was heavy.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I never thought it would bother me. It did.
Yeah.
And this thing at 4.8 pounds, it weighed nothing.
Yeah, there you go.
And yet could shoot like that. But yeah, having John Dudley behind that, pushing it, I don't know that you can say it's the number one selling, because one of the issues about it is each bow the carbon is hand laid. In other words, I found out PSE has 4 people in their factory who lay the carbon for these bows. So it takes a long time to make each bow, and they're not able to crank out the volume they can with others using machines. Hand laying the carbon into the forms for it, that's just a time consuming process. So they're never going to sell the numbers
there you go.
of the other bows because of the way it's made. But it is popular. I know they sent us, and it's $1,900. I mean, so it's almost $2,000 bow.
Just a bare bow.
They sent us 7 in the first run. We sold them in, I think, 2 weeks.
There you go.
And it was in hunting season, which it's not like we got them in the summer. We're in the middle of hunting season, and we sold 7 $2,000 bows like that. That's pretty incredible.
That is pretty incredible. Do you think we're going to start seeing more of these full body risers come to now that they've kind of made it a thing? Do you think that would be something that keeps coming, that's the solid state?
The long riser, you mean? Or
just mean how it doesn't have the holes all through it like most bows do, like the tubes and stuff. It's pretty much just like a solid state riser.
That's kind of been PSE's, that's kind of been their style with the carbons anyway. I don't think Hoyt will go to that. They still have their cutouts in the way they do things. Of course, they're using 2 tubes, so they're kind of naturally going to have that. But I think that's PSE's style, and they'll probably continue with it. Yeah. They obviously like the way that goes.
Once again, I was watching some videos on this, and they were saying that this was a fast bow. This really shot fast, even when shooting with their heavy arrows. What did you kind of find with that?
So that was, of all the bows that we shot, that was the second fastest. I should mention that Hoyt RX7. I had the 29-inch version. That was the fastest bow I shot.
Okay.
I set them all up similar. I can't say they're all identical, but they're all going to be like 29 or 29 and a half inches, 70 pounds. That's how I'm going to set them up. And I do shoot the same arrow. It was a Black Eagle Spartan, and it weighed 477 grains.
Yeah, okay.
I do shoot that arrow from all of them. And the Hoyt RX7, I got 300 feet per second.
Yeah, wow.
The PSE was in the 290s. I can't remember if it was 292 or 295.
Okay.
But it was the second fastest bow that we shot. So yeah, it's got some speed.
So, I mean, realistically, we're talking about the difference of 15 feet per second, probably from your top to your fastest to your slowest bow. What sort of difference do you think that's going to make when using it for hunting?
Well, if you're somebody who shoots multiple pins, your pin gap's going to shrink, which I do. I don't shoot a single pin. I shoot multiple pins. Anything you can do to shrink that pin gap, I'll take this year, for instance, in Illinois, I had a buck that I wanted, one of the ones we were after, show up right in front of me, and I didn't have time to range it. So I kind of had to just go by judging.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this is about 27, 28, 9 yards in there. So I'm aiming at it and I made the shot. So when you're able to do that with a fast bow, your margin for error is bigger.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So
yeah, makes sense.
That is nice to be able to do that.
And
then it masks errors.
Yes.
I mean, quite frankly, if you twitch a little bit on a faster bow, that's your arrow's not going to vary as much because it is flying faster. So that if your pin, moves just a little bit, a quarter inch, it means more on a slower bow than it does on a faster bow.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Perfect. So moving on to the Elite. Now, this is where I have to give a little run because the Elite was the bow that I went with. Last time after our talk, I went with the Elite based on the whole system that they put in place of the tunability. It just kind of really sold me. Being able to tune that bow from home without any issues whatsoever, that really kind of sold me on the bow. And it made it even easier because the guy that I get my arrows from, he also happened to be the elite archery guy in Australia. Essentially, he had access to them. So he had one. He had the cure for a while, and he used it for a bit, and he sold it to me cheap for the second hand. And like I'm talking within a few months of us having this podcast last time, and so I jumped on the board. I was like, yes, this is awesome.
Nice.
And to be honest, I can't fault it. I really love the bow. I think it's great. I've only had to ever play with it once, so I had it paper tuned once, and I left it in my hot car one day. Just couldn't avoid it with where I was. And unfortunately, everything just jumped out of line. And all I had to do was actually just shuffle my sights around. But everything, this is a year and a half onwards from when I first tuned my bow, everything's completely still in line. It's just I had to move my sight. That was it. So realistically, for what it is and what they say it does, I can't fault it. So yeah, that's my little run on the Elite from when I had it from the 2020 bow. But let's talk about the Envision, the 2022.
So the Envision Elite, I think, is one of those bows. They talk about shootability. They say, our bows, the shootability is unmatched, and I have to give them credit for that. That it's just a nice shooting bow. The valley that they have, the draw cycle, the let off, everything they have makes that bow comfortable to shoot. There's nothing uncomfortable about it.
Yeah.
You can stand, it feels like you can stand there at full draw. So I always describe their bow as one that if I come to full draw and I have to let down, it almost feels like I have to push to get it to go forward because, normally you just let up some pressure and the bow starts forward.
Yeah.
That one, I let up pressure and nothing happens. And I'm like, it's not going forward. What's happening? So it kind of feels like you have to push. It's just super comfortable at full draw. And with the Envision, what they did was they tweaked things a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They came out with a wider limb pocket, wider limb stance.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that helps with vibration. It hardly had any vibration anyway.
Yeah.
But they did that, and they moved where the set technology, simplified exact tuning.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they have for their on-site adjustment system. And what it is they're moving the pocket, the limb pocket. Just by turning an Allen key, you can turn that limb pocket left and right. Of course, the net effect of that is at the back end, you are adjusting cam position a little bit.
Yes, yeah.
But it's super simple. And what I like about them is they even give you a little diagram on the bow that says, hey, you got a left tear, turn this way.
Yeah.
You got a right tear, turn this way. That's as foolproof as it can get. But they changed the position of where that limb pocket pivots.
Yeah.
They said it was just, through their testing, they found it was at a better position where they have it now. And actually the limb pocket looks substantially different on the Envision. But everything else, the thing is super nice to shoot. Of course, Elite with their draw length module, they're the only one that give you adjustments by 1/4 inch.
Yeah.
Which is super helpful because how many of us, I know most archers that I know, when, they got the 1/2 inch adjustments, that doesn't work for them. So what do? They twist the cables.
Yeah.
Well, now you change the performance a little bit of your bow as well. As the engineers will tell you, the bow is meant to perform at the length the cables are. And so when you twist them, you're changing that. It's not necessarily a death sentence that you're making the bow crazy, but you are changing the performance. Well, with Elite, they give you 1/4 inch adjustments. You don't have to do any of that.
Yeah.
Everything stays in the specs they want it to be.
It's pretty interesting. And something else you guys are talking about is that they've increased the riser length as well, and kind of brought the limbs to more of almost a parallel type thing.
Right.
Have you seen a big difference with that? Did it feel any different when you were shooting?
Yeah, it definitely held nice. I say that, but the cure held nice too.
Yeah, definitely.
But you can definitely feel that riser length. Just the pin movement is different. Instead of maybe it being kind of erratic, but not moving much, it just slows it down.
Yeah.
So that pin movement is more comfortable, I'd say. It doesn't freak you out as much. You can kind of let it float around and feel comfortable. Hey, by the time I release, it's going to be where I want it.
Yeah. And then the hunt guarantee that they've brought out is something that does any other company offer that, or is that something that they're doing by themselves?
Not that I know of. I certainly haven't heard of that. And, I saw a lot of chatter online about, how are you going to make that happen? You go out and, how are you going to get to a post office or whatever and get the bow, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, if your bow breaks, you're out of business anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. Anything you can do to get it happening again is a good thing, right?
Yeah. This is better than having, it's probably easier to find a post office than it is to find a bow shop in some places.
Yeah, definitely.
And get a whole new bow. And they send you this, you can send it back when you get home. You're not spending $1,000 to replace your bow.
And so the guarantee is if you're out hunting and your bow breaks, they will send you a bow that they've got in their shop ready for you to hunt pretty much. Does it come with everything on it? It's all completely hunt ready. You don't have to put any of your sights or anything like that on, or what's the deal there?
No, it's just the bare bow.
Just the bare bow. So you still have to make some adjustments.
Accessories.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, but still, it's a pretty incredible little deal, right?
For sure, yeah. Like I said, if your bow breaks, you're done anyway. Unless you have a backup, you're out of business. So this is certainly better than the alternative.
Yeah.
Just something great that they're doing there. And I should mention, for anybody who has to deal with the Elite people, that's just a great company. Very responsive with their customer service, very helpful from the top down, from the owner down, it's just a great bunch of people to have to do business with. If you're going to buy their bow, man, you got a whole bunch of people there who are going to be in your corner if you have any issues.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's nice to hear. That's good.
Yeah.
And so of the bows that we've talked about, what would be your pick for the year? I think I know because I think I saw it on your page.
Well, there's different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm shooting the Matthews V3X, the 33. I love that bow. I love the way it shoots. What I would say, though, is that it does what I expected a Matthews to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's no knock against them. But in terms of, going from year to year, what do you see? The V3X does what I would expect a Matthews bow to do. I like it. I'm shooting it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as, though, who did a lot this year to really change things, I mean, that the Prime with their system,
mm-hmm.
the PSE Levitate, the Hoyt Carbon, I mean, those are some pretty significant advancements from my perspective that I think they did and made their bows better. Isn't that what we all want?
Yeah.
We want to see these advancements. That's not saying other companies didn't do great things with their bows, but these were kind of radical changes that we hadn't seen. And while you're asking, I will say, because I hear from people, they're like, you say you like all the flagship bows. I feel comfortably in saying there is no bad flagship bow. I think they want me to say this bow is no good and this one's great. I feel pretty comfortable saying there is no bad flagship bow.
And I
all
think
the bows that they're making are quality.
That makes sense because there's a standard now in the industry, right? And if they're not meeting the standard, they're not going to sell any bows. So it makes a lot of sense.
And I can say we did, Outdoor Life magazine came here last week and did their annual bow test of the flagship bows. Can't give away the results yet, but what I can say is I was the one who had to set up and tune every one of the flagship bows. It was within 3 shots, they were all shooting bullet holes.
Yeah.
No problems. I mean, it was super easy. They were just minor rest or knocking point adjustments. All of them, I was able to get to shoot bullet holes in a matter of minutes. So, yes, for me, I believe in those flagship bows. They are all putting out quality bows. You can't go wrong with any of it. It's going to come down to personal preference.
Let's talk about, and this might be the wrong question to be asking someone who's in a bow shop, but let's talk about the necessity of actually having a new bow every year. Like, obviously, there's your diehards that will go out and buy a new bow every year.
Yeah.
But to be honest, like, I am so comfortable with my bow now. I think the upgrade was one of the best things I ever did because it made my shooting just that much different. Like, it really, I didn't think it would make that much of a difference. But going from a midline bow that was designed in 2015 or something like that to going to a top-of-the-line 2020 bow, the difference that it made in my shooting was incredible. I was shooting the same though I'd shoot at 20 meters, now at 40 and 50 meters. My groupings were just as close as they ever were. So it really gives you a big confidence boost in your setup. But within saying that, I don't feel then the need to actually... I don't have the desire to upgrade my bow. But
what we're seeing is about 5 years, you'll probably notice a difference.
Yeah.
But from year to year, you probably won't, especially if you stay within brand. If you shoot the Elite 1 year, then the Elite the next year, the next year, the next year, they're probably going to feel all very similar to you. Yeah. Versus if you shot one and then waited 5 years and then got one, now you're probably going to see some difference. But there are some people out there who they want to have the latest and greatest, and it always amazes me. I think probably more like you. I think once I get something working, I kind of want to stick with it.
Yeah,
I don't want to change things up. But there are people who, boom, hey, new bow, I want to have it every year. And hey, more power to them, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what they like to do. There's probably you probably could see some difference if you really like change things up. Like, okay, this year I'm going to get the 27-inch Matthews. And, next year I'm going to get the inline 7,
35, yeah.
the big, huge inline bow, the other end of the spectrum. Maybe you can see some differences there, and get a bow every year that performs very differently.
Yeah.
But if you're, a Hoyt guy, you're probably not going to see much of a difference one year to the next.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so within saying that then, is there a favorite accessory that you've seen come out of late? Maybe 2022 or 2021?
So the Excel landslide sight is crazy popular. It's basically what Excel did is they had their AccuTouch line of sights, just a bulletproof sight. It has really good pin fiber. The way it's made is solid. And with what they call the landslide is you can get, like I have a 5-pin sight, but the scope is mounted on a vertical bracket, and now they have a wheel for adjusting up and down. So I can make my 5-pin sight, basically I can put a sight tape on it and shoot it, out to 100 and whatever yards if I want to.
Yep.
It's a movable fixed pin sight. And just the way that it is built, that's the hardest one for us to keep in stock.
Yeah,
when we get a bunch of them in, boom, they're gone. People are just snapping them up. You can put your own scope on them. UltraView is super popular with their scope system. So we see a lot of people get the Excel landslide sight and they put the UltraView scope on it. So there's just a lot you can do with that sight body.
Can you explain that a little bit more for me? I have not seen the scopes.
Sure. So UltraView has their scope, which it's bothering me that I can't remember the name of it.
The UV3?
It's just the numbers. Yeah, UV3, UV2. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's a cartridge-based system. So it's a scope that you can get these cartridges that you put in. You can get ones for target shooting. You can get ones with different pin configurations. And it's just you have the scope body and you pull this cartridge out, put another one in. It has this built-in light system, which is one of the nicest lights that I have ever seen. It's a UV blue light. And if you use, if you're shooting a lens with a fluorescent dot on it, it just makes that thing glow.
Yeah,
if you've got the pin in there, it lights that thing up. So it's just a super adjustable. You can do a lot of things with one scope, change its configuration around to a bunch of different systems. Some of the target things here, you're not allowed to have a light, so you can take the light off of it.
So does it sit on the front of your sight housing, or is it on the back of the sight housing?
Oh yeah, so you have your typical sight, and you have your scope that has your pins in it on any sight.
Yeah.
So on the Excel landslide, you can take that scope off and put another one in, and that's what this one would be. You just have to get a rod to go into the what holds the scope in place. And so you would just put your own scope on, take the Excel one off. Actually, we sell a version that comes without a scope, so you put whatever you want on it.
Yeah, wow. Very interesting. So
yeah, they're really, UltraView is really good with their marketing. They got some great social media influencers who use this stuff and promote it. And so they've developed kind of this cult following, very similar to Matthew's.
Yeah.
There are people out there who are rabid UltraView fans. They just love everything UltraView.
Yeah. Okay.
And so they have this scope, they have their release, it's a hinge. So they make some really good stuff.
Is Axel the site that had the V site? Is that them? It was the instead of having the pins through the middle, you had the V as your scope housing. So it had your scope, and you had the V.
I remember that.
I can't remember what brand it was. I don't think it was actually Axel, but it was apparently really good for anyone who was suffering forms of target panic or buck fever.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I'm not aware of them having that.
Yeah, there's a good YouTuber, Ranch Fairy, that's worth checking out just to see that system. Yeah, he's a funny guy. I've had him on the podcast before. But yeah, it was an interesting system. And it just made me kind of think of that. I don't know why, but yeah, that's really cool. There you go. Well, I think that's a pretty good.
So that.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think that site has probably been super popular, and I know I like it. Spot Hog kind of has a very good following for their sites, and for a while they were the only ones doing a lot of the things the way they did to make that site really solid. And I think Excel has caught up and now has done a lot of the things, bladed pins, things to make their site really solid. They've got the extra fiber in there so that your pins glow. And so I think Excel has caught up and now offers a lot of the same things like Spot Hog does.
Yeah.
To make really good sites that can do a lot of things.
I guess you could say they've excelled.
Exactly.
Sorry, I'm a dad now. I can make those type of jokes. Well, mate, that's been really cool. I think that's been very insightful, and it's cool just to kind of get a bit of an overview on the new bows that are coming out. And just cool to keep your finger on the pulse of the new things that are coming out.
Hey, I'm going to throw one out there
to you
that people aren't talking about a lot, probably because they don't have the marketing. But that is the Darton Spectra E.
Darton Spectra E.
So Darton is a name. If you're my age, you most certainly probably owned a Darton. They were very big in the 80s, and actually pretty much every compound bow made has a Darton patented piece on it. Huh. Their engineer Rex Darlington is kind of one of the godfathers of the compound bow.
Yeah.
And they were huge in the 80s and 90s, huge. And then kind of just their marketing didn't quite keep up. They had so many patents on things, they really didn't necessarily need to make new bows every year.
Got you, yeah.
But the company got sold to the guys who own Black Eagle.
Okay.
Randy Kitts. He bought it, and so he wants to breathe new life into it. And so it was funny. He sent me the Spectra E 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I shot it, and I called him back, and I said, Randy, I can't review this bow. I was like, this bow is not, it's uncomfortable. It was one of those that, it was an aluminum bow, and it really thumped.
Yeah.
Like up to your shoulder. It was just painful to shoot. I was like, you're definitely going to lose the 5-yard test.
Yeah.
So he went back, they redesigned it. I saw him at a tournament last summer, and he said, PJ, come on over here. Remember that bow you hated last year? I said, yeah. He's like, here, shoot this. So I shot it again, and man, this thing is ridiculous. They made all kinds of improvements, and now this thing is just an awesome bow. It's still called the Darton Spectra E, but just an incredibly shooting bow. They used a new type of aluminum. It's one of the stiffest aluminums that you can use in a bow, and they're using it. And they changed the limb angle. lot of stuff that they did. And now that bow is just awesome to shoot. You're just not going to hear much about it because they don't have the marketing machine behind it.
The power of it, yeah. But I mean, it's actually a pretty cool looking bow, right? Like yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it has this. So again, they still have Rex Darlington, the engineer, working for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a unique system. You'll see these pulleys up where you normally see the cable harness right under the cam.
Yeah.
On the Matthews, you see it's like a horseshoe shaped thing. Well, they actually have rollers there. And what happens is they have a split yoke that comes off the cam. It goes through the roller and straight back up to the same cam. Normally, it would go down to the other one, but it comes back and goes up to the same cam. And so what it's doing is you have 3 points of contact pulling down on that axle. So it makes it easier on the bearings and it eases the pressure on the axle.
Yeah, okay.
So it just takes a lot of the play out of it that you would have, from the draw cycle, making different things happen.
Yeah.
So that's what they call their E system. And it's just super ingenious. It might be a little ahead of its time. Some people are going to look at it and be like, oh, what's that? That looks weird. But if you shoot it and understand what it does, I mean, it's just awesome. And it shoots lights out. I have one that I play with, and it's just a great bow to shoot.
That's unreal. There you go. I just
kind of a
got
blast
schooled
from
in something.
the past.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's so cool that it's still around.
Yeah. And Randy's hoping to, get that marketing machine going again to bring it back to life, which of course that's always neat.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, PJ, thank you so much, mate. And I think, as always, to send people your way, the best place to get in contact or to buy anything from Lancaster Archery is to go to lancasterarchery.com, right?
That's right. That's where we are. Yep, we're there operating 24/7, 365.
And you guys have your big shoot coming up next week, so good luck with all of that.
Next weekend. Yep, we'll have all the best archers in the world will be here shooting for some big money. So if you're on our website or social media channels, you'll see lots of coverage of that. We're looking forward to it.
What sort of coverage do you have running on it?
So we will have we have a qualification day where everybody shoots 60 arrows for qualification. We'll have some random coverage of that. There's 2,000 archers coming, so that's kind of all over the place. But when we get into the finals now of each division, we have 17 divisions. Each division is either going to have 8 finalists or 4. And we do what's called a shoot up format. In other words, 8 versus 7 versus 6.
Yeah.
The winners can advance all the way up. Those finals will be broadcasting live on our social media channels.
Amazing.
And it's great. I mean, it's super fun. It's on a stage, the archers are front and center. We've got stadium seating surrounded. I mean, the pressure is really on. I don't know how they're able to do anything. I would fall apart completely, but these people are the best at what they do. So there's some incredible archery.
That's amazing. That's incredible. Well, I'm going to drop this before that happens. So guys, if you're listening, make sure you head across and check it out for sure.
Absolutely. Hey, we sure appreciate your time, Matty.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. It's been cool, and hopefully we can do another one next year.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
All right, mate. Thanks so much for your time.